Because now you got, little Johnny pulling on mom's pant leg saying, I want to go to McDonald's so I can get my plastic toy. So he said, what if we do Happy Meals at banks? Like no one does that. What if that's our marketing piece? But he also noticed that the most common passenger in the car wasn't little Johnny. It was the family dog. So he said, we're going to give out bones. They started putting milk bones, the only bank to do it.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a special one. What you're about to hear is an interview I recorded with best-selling author Mike Michalowicz for the accounting and finance show America's Virtual Conference. Mike, who is very well known for his fantastic book, Profit First, has a new book coming out called Get Different, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. We discuss how to market your business and some other great topics. Just to let you know, during this interview, you may hear some mentions of dates that have already passed, so just ignore them. All right, here's my chat with Mike. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the accounting and finance show, America's Virtual Conference. I am Michael Palmer, the host of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. And this episode is going to be live with the Accounting and Finance Show Americas. And we've got a tremendous guest. His name is Michael Michalowicz. He is the best-selling author of several books, including Profit First, and now his latest one, Get Different, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. Mike Michalowicz, welcome to the show.
Michael, it's a pleasure to be with you. Hey, how many times have you been somewhere like you're in a crowded area and someone's like, "Hey, Michael," do you not turn around anymore? Like, I assume it's someone else.
I know I can't. I always turn. Yeah.
I gave up about 10 years ago. I'm like, I'm not turning because I'm the idiot. Like they're like, "Hey, Michael," I turn around and I'm like, yeah, and like, oh, a different person, not you, whoever you are. Like I'm not turning around. And if they really know who I am, they'll start yelling Michalowicz. Or some bastardization of it. So I was curious. I think the show's over. That was fun. That was a joy.
That was it. We're just
Thanks for having me.
Well, I was going to share my Mike story, which is whenever I call someone Mike, I feel bad because I'm like, I'm Michael, and there was back in the day, people would call me Mike, and early on it was like, well, what do you want me to call you? Well, my name's Michael, so just call me Michael. So it's been this thing over. So whenever I say it to someone else, I always go, wait a second, are you Mike or Michael?
Yeah, oh, right. So I'm friends with a guy named Michael Port. He's a great author, and he prefers to go by Michael. I prefer to go by Mike because Michael Michalowicz, it just sounds like you're saying Michael. And it's just
Michaels.
Yeah, it's like, what were my parents thinking? So I prefer to go by Mike. But because I prefer to go by Mike, I default to calling other Michaels Mike, and then it just causes a whole confusion thing.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, this is maybe part of the marketing that can't be ignored because we can't ignore our names, right?
Right. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think how you tied that in. That was nice.
There you go. Well, listen, our listeners who are here, they're probably already big fans of yours. How can they not be? We're at the Accounting and Finance Show. You wrote a best-selling book called Profit First, which is transforming and eradicating entrepreneurial poverty around the world. I mean, it's the biggest book in finance, in my opinion, and one of the best. And so if people haven't read Profit First, you got to get that book and read it. But you've got a new book coming out. This one sounds super exciting. I mean, you've got a long list of books and they're fantastic books. But maybe for those that don't know you, Mike, give a little bit of your backstory before we get into how people can stand out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about your new book.
Yeah. And why it's so important, particularly for accountants and bookkeepers to stand out. So just my backstory, I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life, ever since college. By the way, I never aspired to. It wasn't like I had like the newspaper job or whatever. I kind of fell into it. And I also experienced, along with the highs, I had some exits and so forth. I experienced the lows. I think that's actually the most important part of most of our journeys, at least for me. On my third company, I was such a calamity. I was such a disaster. I lost everything I had made. We lost our house over it. We lost our possessions. And it became this kind of great awakening for me that I really didn't understand the entrepreneurial journey. I had some good fortune, some good luck, and attributed it to myself. I really didn't understand the principles. So I devoted my life at that point. I said, I'm going to commit my life to fix this. And that's why I use the word eradicate entrepreneurial poverty, because most entrepreneurs, most business owners have to confidently talk about their success when the reality is the struggle. You can't go to a client and say, oh my gosh, I'm miserable. I don't have enough money to pay payroll next week. So you have to go out braggadociously and powerfully. But the reality for most of us is it's check-to-check survival, constant panic and struggle for most entrepreneurs. And that's what I was living too. So I decided to become a full-time author. That was now almost 14 years ago, and been writing books, studying entrepreneurship. I own 3 businesses now, but I'm really endeavored just to simplify the entrepreneurial journey, to get to the essence of what works. And hopefully as a result, we'll eradicate some degree of entrepreneurial poverty.
We'll get back to the interview in just a few moments, but right now, here's a quick message from our sponsor. Let me ask you a question. Are you frustrated with how long it takes to get stuff in your bookkeeping business, or with how chaotic or confusing things seem to be? Well then, let me tell you about a much better way of getting work done by using an amazing tool that will help you overcome the frustrating log jams in your bookkeeping business. Sweet Process is a simple but powerful solution that lets you create clear, step-by-step instructions for every task in your bookkeeping business, from new client onboarding to executing client work to responding to client requests. So everything gets done more easily and reliably. Plus, you'll have a central place where everyone who works with you, your employees, contractors, and even virtual assistants, can access your procedures anytime from any device. The best way to understand how Sweet Process streamlines your work is to start using it. The company offers a 14-day free trial, but as a loyal listener of this podcast, you can try it for 28 days free of charge. You don't even have to enter your credit card to get started. Just go to sweetprocess.com/successful bookkeeper to begin your free 28-day trial today. Thank you for taking the time to hear from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. I love it. And I think you already are doing that. And there's so many wonderful stories of people who've read your book or worked with one of your Profit First professionals who've literally just put so much more money into their pockets, into their wealth, into their family, which is a big turnaround. And so if anybody hasn't read the book, I recommend that they do. It's a fantastic book. Your organization is fantastic. And I mean, for the audience that's listening or watching to this right now, I think the book, what's really powerful is how it can differentiate your thinking and your service offering in this industry. I mean, people talk about the numbers need to be done. You need to, many business owners think about anybody in accounting and finance. They think, well, that's just because we need to pay the taxes, right? So we need to do that work. This changes it to the value of we're doing the work to put more money in your jeans, changes the value conversation dramatically. So such a great audience that we have today that can benefit from that book. But as well, your new book, and I'd like to get to know that. I haven't knew that.
It's just being released actively right now. It's in pre-order status.
Pre-order status. So we get to talk a little bit about that, give some of the pointers about it. But I mean, from the title, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored, if you want to be known in the marketplace, if you want to be found, you want to build a business, this sounds like a book that many should be reading. Tell us about it.
Yeah. The only thing a prospect knows about your business until they do business with you is your marketing. It's their only experience with you. And sadly, for most accountants and bookkeepers, and I've surveyed audiences, I have a privilege of working with so many and interviewing folks. I've done this with large audiences. I say, raise your hand if this is your primary source of leads, word of mouth and referrals. And I would say in audiences, 80 to 90% go up. And the other folks are an association, network marketing, not network marketing, but networking, like going to a chamber of commerce and so forth. But the vast majority of leads are referrals. And that is wonderful. That means for those clients that are referring you business, you have a reputation of excellence. There's a reason that you're catalyzing them to refer you business. But it also means you're dependent on clients to market for you. And the day those clients don't have the time, don't have the desire, or perhaps they stop doing business with you, there goes your marketing stream. So referral is representation of service, and it should be the icing on the cake. But it's not throttleable, meaning I can't say tomorrow, oh my gosh, we really need to ramp up some more lead flow. And then what are you going to do? Call your clients and say, hey, thanks for the lead like 2 months ago. Can you send me like 6 more today? It's unreasonable. And you can't slow it down either. So if say you're in tax season or something and you're just cranking along, and can you handle taking on more leads right now? It may be better to wait until tax season's over, for example. Well, you can't throttle that on a referral basis. So effective proactive marketing allows you to throttle and control deliberately your flow. And if you can control your flow of leads, then you control the flow of your entire business. So to do this, you have to do marketing that gets noticed. The essence of the book is this. I always like to boil it down to core principles. But what I did was I studied how our minds, the human mind, consumes information. And there is a thing called the reticular formation. It includes the reticular activation system. Some people are familiar with that. But the reticular formation is like a neural net that sits at the base of our brain. And it sits there and it serves a function to ignore. Its core function is to ignore most things. So as I'm kind of like in a little bit of a lecture mode here right now, but
I love it though. I'm learning something.
Cool? Is that cool? Okay. So right now, Michael, around you is hundreds, if not thousands of things vying for your attention. The books behind you, the microphone in front of you, the advertisements, the blinking on websites and so forth. All these things at the appropriate time are important. That microphone is important, but right now it's a passive device that's receiving information. But our mind, if it didn't have this neural net, it would actually have to evaluate everything. Our brains would figuratively explode from this just stream of overwhelm. So the primary function of the reticular formation is ignore, but allow 3 things through. And this is the critical knowledge. The first thing that gets through this neural net is opportunities. So if we're talking, I plop down a wad of cash in front of you and say, hey, just really enjoy this podcast. Hey, thanks for having me on. You will notice that wad of cash. It gets past reticular formation because it's a known opportunity. Someone's giving you money. Now, your brain will then put into what's called the prefrontal cortex of our mind, where we start consciously evaluating this. Is Mike trying to manipulate me here? What's his motive for this? Should I just take the money because I would like to, but there may be a hook. So our mind prioritizes opportunity to evaluate it, ensure that it's a true opportunity and will serve us, and then take action accordingly. The second thing that goes through the mind is threats. So if I plop down a gun on the table and said, hey, didn't enjoy the podcast today, and I think we got to fix this, and I plop down a gun in front of you, now the reticular formation prioritizes that information because threats are the most dangerous to our survival. It sends it over to what's called the amygdala. The amygdala is a hyperspeed response mechanism. It works so fast, in fact, it causes our body to react before our mind can actually consciously calculate. If you've ever been like in a yard, all of a sudden something squiggles on the ground, you notice you're jumping before you even notice that there's something there. Thanks amygdala, it prioritized threat and moving you to safety. Now, it could be someone turned on the hose, or it could be a snake, but our mind triggers that behavioral response before we consciously evaluate it. So threats are very effective. So 2 ways so far through the reticular formation is plop down an opportunity or plop down a threat. So you can market that way. You could send someone a stack of $1 million and say, here you go, let's talk. You may get the phone call, but there's massive risk there. It's going to cost you a lot of money to get their attention. Conversely, you could send a threat. You could say, hey, if you don't call me, you're not going to be doing so well. Now that may work, but threats will cause retaliation. People will move towards safety, could end you up in jail, right? So those 2 don't work. One's very costly. One puts you at extraordinary risk as the marketer. But there's a third thing that works every single time. And what it is different. When something unexpected presents itself, the reticular formation says, I don't know if this is something that's ignorable. This could be an opportunity, or it could be a threat, or it could be ignorable, but I don't know. There's no historical reference frame. So I'm just going to shoot it through and allow us to evaluate this. That's why, if you ever notice when it comes to mail, like a stack of mail comes out, junk mail, how you can just roll through. It's like garbage, 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 garbage. Oh, there's a check for me. I'll take this garbage, garbage, garbage. But sometimes there's something like, what is this? It's a box. You weren't expecting a box. That's why a lot of people say send lumpy mail, because it's unexpected. Unexpected will then invoke us to say, I have to evaluate this to see if it's an opportunity or a threat, to put in those or ignorable, one of those three categories. So step one in the get different model is, if you are different, you are guaranteed attention. Momentarily, milliseconds. Sometimes we can very quickly evaluate that different and say it's disposable, or we should grab on it. But you can guarantee milliseconds of attention by first being different.
Amazing. You have me thinking about my mailbox, and it's amazing how many people don't make any effort to be different. They're just the same.
I know it's the bane of most business, because we use best practices. Accounting conference, go to the accounting conference. You ask, the next 5-10 accountants you meet, what's the best practice for marketing? And you're going to hear the same thing. Oh, everyone does, you got to get referrals, run those Facebook ads, or get on social media and start doing stuff and build an email list. I'm not saying that those things have merit, but what I am saying is they're indistinguishable to the prospect. Here's an example with just email alone. I don't know, Michael, do you ever get one of those emails that says, hey, friend, and then it says something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I remember, I did too. I do all the time now. But the very first time I got that, it was different. The first time. And I was like, oh my God, I have a friend who just called me friend. Like, this is awesome. Who is my friend? And I read the email, and as I'm going through, I'm like, this isn't a friend. This is someone trying to market to me, trying to sell me something I don't want. Bad friend. Well, the second one comes through, another hey friend. I'm like, hey friend, I think I had one of these before. I kind of looked a little bit like, oh, marketing. By the third one, I'm like, oh, hey friend, delete.
Yes. No.
That process is called habituation. Habituation is part of the reticular formation. When we habitually, hence habituation, when we habitually experience something, we very quickly can identify and categorize opportunity, threat, or ignorable. So that hey friend fell in the ignorable category, and therefore we deleted it. The very first person to send that was successful, but then it became a best practice. And the best practice mollifies its effectiveness because everyone's sending it. So different is actually doing what no one else in your industry does. I'm not saying doing what no one in the world does. I'm just saying for the people who are approaching your prospect. So for example, I've been using these bomb videos where you send a video email to someone. And it's apparently among my contemporaries, other authors, they don't often send bomb videos or never do. So the open rate, it's an email send, for me is disproportionately high compared to the contemporaries I know of because they're not doing it. The reader feedback is extraordinary. They're like, wow, I've never received a video from an author before. I feel flattered. I feel touched because these are personal videos. It's different. And those bomb videos will continue to be of extraordinary success until the day my contemporaries, my competitors do the same thing. And that mollifies it and have to seek out the new different.
That's right. Well, it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to reproduce as well. So I think you've got an angle there that will continue to probably last, is that being different often takes more work and more energy and effort. And that's why many are not doing it. So there's opportunity there.
And you're 100% right. And that's why there's usually a much bigger payoff. In the book, there's a thing they call it killing darlings. And toward the very end of writing a book, my editor comes back to me inevitably and says, all right, we got to kill 4 more pages of stuff. Here's the stories we're going to cut. And that's when they're starting to cut like the stuff I love. And it really hurts, but it's necessary to have a really concise, effective book. Well, one of the stories was, I call it the casino scene. And basically what it is if you walk into a casino and there's a wheel up, one of these spinning wheels, and it says, one spot says you win $100 and every other one says retry. would you do it? And the answer is like, yeah, you just keep on spinning that wheel. Now, what kind of bet would you make to win that money? And most people, if you think through it logically, will say, I'll make the minimum bet, a penny, because I don't know when I'm going to hit it. I want the smallest bet with the biggest return. But then I said, what if your number one competitor is right next to you, and whoever puts down the biggest bet gets to sit at that wheel and keep on spinning it? Well, now we see what we want to bet for real. And think about the lifetime value of a client. That's what that wheel number has. A client for me, it can be pretty extraordinary. Over the years, it could be tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes even $100,000 or more. That's a lot of money. What am I willing to bet to win that tens of thousands of dollars award? Well, I can do email blasts, which is basically I'm betting a penny, but that's what my competition is doing. And if my competition says, you know what, I'm going to bet $100 to land that client, they're instantly going to start marketing in a much more different and effective way. Maybe they send out that lumpy mail. Maybe maybe that's a ticket on a flight where you can just ring the doorbell and walk in, which is a form of marketing. Maybe they can do things I don't do because they're willing to make the investment. So that's what I challenge people to do is the easy route and the inexpensive route is usually the ineffective route. What is it really worth to you in marketing efforts? Not guaranteed. I can spin that wheel and I don't hit the $100,000 price point, but I will get a try again every time if I don't. What are you willing to bet on that client to win that big prize and then act accordingly?
Such I think a concept that many wouldn't think about. They think of a client as the one-off, what you see in front of you. It's like this client's going to hire me to do, maybe it's $2,000 a year or $2,000 a month. Regardless, the retention rate, especially in the accounting and finance space, the retention rate of clients talking multi-year, it could be tens of thousands of dollars in this industry quite easily. And so it's interesting that when you start to think that way, it's going to perhaps change the effort that you put into it and the way you think about it. And that may have opened up the opportunity now, is that there really is an opportunity here in what you're painting for us today, and being different, marketing different, and investing in that, because different costs more. It's going to take more effort because you have to think differently, creatively, all that good stuff. So help us, or can you help us outline some ways that we can be different?
Sure. And it doesn't necessarily have to cost more. Sometimes actually is less expensive. Inevitably is more thought time. So I'll give you a couple tips. One is to do what I call the EST. And the S is EST, the superlative of something. So most people pursue the ER, not the ER, but the meaning I want to be better than the competition. We're going to be, cooler, faster, slower, whatever. I'm saying, how can you be the fastest or the slowest or the weirdest or the coolest? Now, do leverage your idiosyncrasies. I'm not saying if you're, button down straight professional, don't put on a Bozo the Clown costume and go yuckity into your next, prospect meeting, because it's disingenuous. I will promise you this though, if you're the yuckity guy, it gets noticed because it's so different. It's the weirdest or the most unexpected thing they've seen. So that's an est. Now, different guarantees attention, but it also must be attractive. That's actually the second stage. There's 3 stages: differentiate, attract, ultimately direct. We're talking about differentiate. So first of all, look into ests. I had a call with actually my old college fraternity brother, and his name's Greg. He calls me up and he's like, I'm reading your new book, Get Different. I gave him an early release. It's still in pre-orders we shared. And he owns a real estate agency. And he goes, this is great and stuff, but he goes, it doesn't apply to us. We can't do it. I then told him to use what's the common approach. And this is what we all can do. Look at your industry and get real clear what are the common approaches to marketing, all the flavors, and get very specific about it. When it came to real estate, he said, well, everyone puts a real estate sign out there. I said, okay, give me details about real estate signs. Well, you put in the front yard and it says for sale and there's some balloons attached to it. I said, okay, there's the one thing we're not going to do. So that's what you do with the common approach. Once you identify what the common approach is, that's the one thing you can't do. Then you start iterating, what are all the things that you could do that are not that? He said, well, I still got to put a sign out there. I said, I get it. But I said, does it have to be a sign with little, balloons? He said, well, I could put this pinwheels on it, because that's different. Now there's other, I don't know if you've ever seen it out there. He said other real estate agents sometimes do that. Interestingly, those are more noticeable because they're different, unexpected. I said, well, why don't we put one major pinwheel on it? What if they make these windmills kind of like from the old world, but they make it into like a garden kind of windmill. It has the 4 posts coming down and pretty big. They can be 5, 10 feet tall even. I said, why don't you put one of those in with one of your sign? And now you're known as the Windmill Real Estate Agency, even though the agency's, Greg and Co. You'll be known for that because it's so distinct and different. Well, sure enough, they went to the garden center. They bought 10 of these windmills. They attached them on and they start getting attention. It was literally that simple. So rule 1, do the est. Rule 2 is look at the common approach and then do anything that's different or opposite of that. And I'll give you the third strategy is to do what's called a blend. In other words, R&D other industries. And when I say R&D, I mean rip off and duplicate. Rip off and duplicate other industries. There was a bank here in New Jersey called Commerce Bank. They subsequently have sold to TD Bank for billions. The founder, guy's name is Vernon Hill. Rewind 30 years ago when he started the bank, he sold it after I think 10 or 15 years of ownership. So the sales are ways back now. He looked at McDonald's and noticed that McDonald's, their Happy Meals is a powerful marketing mechanism. Because now you got, little Johnny pulling on mom's pant leg saying, I want to go to McDonald's so I can get my plastic toy. So he said, what if we do Happy Meals at banks? Like no one does that. What if that's our marketing piece? But he also noticed that the most common passenger in the car wasn't little Johnny. It was the family dog. So he said, we're going to give out bones. They started putting milk bones, the only bank to do it, with your receipts. Whenever you do a deposit, whatever, you get a milk bone. They had a Pavlovian response. Dogs in their cars with their owners would be coming down the road, passing a bank, and the dog starts salivating and barking. Like this is a dream come true in marketing because they blended, they took an idea from somewhere else and they introduced it into their industry, making it different.
Amazing. What a great story. Really brings it to light and literally was not that expensive. Dog bone, yeah. Right? In terms of but it did take creative time. And so the real investment here is your time to think.
Encourage.
Do the work to encourage.
That's actually the biggest investment. The number one, so we have hundreds of companies. As I was writing the book, we were doing beta tests after beta tests and refining the concept. The number one cost is the cost of our ego, the fear that we may be made fun of, the fear of failure. So there's a cost of time. There can be a financial cost, but the biggest one was simply, what if it doesn't work? It felt safer to keep doing what wasn't working than take the risk of doing something that might.
So how do you overcome that? Because that's a huge cost, and maybe one that even it's not even a cost, but the price tag is so potentially high you don't even consider making the move. What have been your experiences there for people taking courage?
So the first thing is to have a greater purpose. So I actually opened the book by asking a question, and I'll ask this of you, Michael, and any listener can ask this. They can respond to this in your head. Here's a question I have for you. Your business, Michael, and I know a lot about your business. You have an amazing organization serving bookkeepers, accountants. In your business, do you believe that your service is better than most of your competitors? Honestly,
is the service better?
Your offering. Does your offering serve your clients better than the alternatives?
I believe they do.
Yeah. Damn straight they do, right? And I understand you're taking a little bit, you're being humble here too, because it's uncomfortably braggadocious. But I know your service is better than your competition. And I feel the same way about my own business. I feel that when someone elects to become a profit first professional, they'll be better served than going to some alternative company. Now, here's the thing. If we truly emphatically believe our offering is better than the alternatives and our customers buy the alternatives, it's of disservice to that customer. Do you agree?
It is.
Right?
Yes.
So then here's the rallying cry. Damn it, you and I have a freaking obligation to market. Because again, the only thing a customer knows about a business before they experience the business is the marketing itself. The only way we can get noticed by his clients is by marketing. And it's of disservice not to market. Because if we are superior in our offering, if our offering will serve them better, if they'll come out ahead because of us, damn it, we got to market to them. Shane,
That's right.
in the book, I say when a customer hires or uses an alternative and they're of a lesser value, it is their problem, but it is our fault. That's the key. So first, I help people just get angry. Get angry that your clients and prospects are going elsewhere just because of an awareness factor and they're not experiencing you. Shame on us for them not discovering us. So that's the first thing, to get angry. And then the second thing is to dip your toe in the water. I realize taking these bold moves, there's a lot of justifications not to incur expense, not to invest the time. There's a million fires you got to put out right now. I don't have the time to think and ideate. Just dip your toe in the water, meaning try something small. I'll give you an example right now. Right now, everyone listening in can do something different in your email. In your email signature, change it up in some way. Make every letter rainbow color. Make your name massively big, or actually make your name so small, but then the call to action, we're ready to serve you. Make it like a font that's size 48 points. Do something that is radically different. I was interviewing one guy. He had a normal signature, but in there, he put the words, my dream. It was in red. And after it, he says, my dream is to speak on the TEDx stage one day. I hope someone one day will find this and can help me fulfill this dream. Sure enough, he got a TEDx speech. I think like 3 or 4 months later, someone said, I saw this. Tell me what you do. And they invited him ultimately to a TEDx speech. He has done 2 or 3 of those. So start dipping your toe in the water. The interesting thing about email is we all use it. We all can do something different in it immediately. So within seconds of now. And the funny thing is, maybe it doesn't work, but you'll notice that it doesn't hurt either. You won't get all these nasty grams. Oh my God, you changed your email signature. I'm never going to do business with you again. The worst case is no one says anything. The best case is you start experiencing a little bit of a gain. But either way, you'll start building that muscle and courage, and you can do the next thing and the next.
I love it. Those are some great ideas, and I think the one that resonates is that the before you get angry is the realization of why you should be angry.
Yeah. And
I think many don't often likely think about that. I mean, I find myself forgetting to even think that way. We're busy doing the work in our business and building the business. We forget the consequences. Why are we doing what we do? We know what we can do, and we know we can help bookkeeping businesses grow and get more efficient, all these good things, but we forget about the consequences of not doing that. Yeah. And when we think of that, like right away, it's like, of course, we're going to take different actions when we have different inputs and ideas like that. And then, yeah, it is a risk to go and do something different, but dipping your toe, changing your email signature, these are simple ways to begin the shift in momentum towards something that is different and thoughtful and will make an impact in one's business. Now, Mike, tell me about, we're almost up on time.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot. I mean, we've given some amazing ideas. I mean, just the concept of actually being different. And after we've talked through a few of these ideas, for sure, the greatest cost is the courage. A little bit of cost of creativity and thought to do here. And you mentioned that people are busy and in their world don't have the time to think. But if you carve out a little bit, you can do that. I imagine this book is going to unpack a whole formula around how to get this done in our business. Tell our viewers how they can get a copy of this book.
So it is available for pre-order right now. So we're recording this, I know, in early 2021. The book hasn't come out released until September, but the book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your favorite bookstore for pre-order. I'll give you the site to go to though, because then you can start getting resources and get started right away. It's gogetdifferent.com. The book title is Get Different because we have to get different, but gogetdifferent.com. And if you go there, there's free resources, there's information in the book. You can get started on this process even before the book releases. I
love that. I mean, we've already given some serious actions to take out of this event today. There's ways to go to get the book, but get the pre-order. And then that URL again was Go Get Different. Yep, that's exactly it. GoGetDifferent.com. GoGetDifferent.com. And get started. Start taking some of these actions, putting these into place in your business or even your thinking. And we've talked a lot. I know some of the viewers here today are not business owners. They work in finance, perhaps. Maybe you have an idea of owning a business. Maybe you don't have an idea of having a business and you want to grow your career inside of another organization. This is a book that you must read. Don't be fooled, Mike. And maybe you can speak to this a little bit as we end this conversation, is that we're all marketers, whether we work in a business or not. And so differentiating ourselves and standing out, whether we're trying to get clients or get the job promotion or get, noticed in our lives, these are concepts apply to all.
Yeah, and that's the idea. So I wrote the book for the entrepreneur within all of us, because we're all entrepreneurs of our own lives. My own son used this. He had his dream college he wanted to get into and got waitlisted, which is basically a very comfortable denial. And he used a strategy. He assembled a poster. He took pictures of himself ever since he was a child wearing the clothing and stuff from the school because he had visited, and put balloons on it and all stuff. And he said, "My dream's always to go here. Dreams can be put on hold, but they can't be denied. I hope you reconsider me." He got a call from the dean of administration. Now, this school has over 50,000 students with undergrad and grad students, 50,000. They called and they said, "This is the first time we've ever received anything like this." He said, "I can't." This was actually right around the scandal time with parents getting their kids in school. He's like, "I can't by default let you in, but I want you to know we're reevaluating and reconsidering you because of your inspirational message to us." Ultimately, he elected to go to another school. So that school lost out, but they were kind of on their knees saying, "We want people with your character to come in because you acted so definitively." So that's the opportunity for all of us, is if we fall in line, we're actually unnoticeable. If we're willing to do something different, but truly integral to ourselves, again, not outrageous, just integral to ourselves, but different, it can move mountains.
Remarkable story. Congratulations to your son in getting into his number one choice.
Yeah.
And they're going to look back on that and go, "We could have had him.
We could have had that guy." Yeah. He got into his ultimate dream school, which he never thought he would be there, but he is.
Beautiful. That's well, he sounds like an exceptional young person. So fantastic. You're a great author, and by the sounds of it, a great dad. It's another concept in the book, the dad framework, which that's right. We don't have time to jump into. So that's a teaser for getting this book. Remarkable things can happen when you open up new ideas in your mind. And so that's one of the great things you do, Mike, for many, many people is create new ideas and change brain thinking and brain waves to create new results. Mike, this has been absolutely tremendous. A big thank you to the Accounting and Finance Show Americas for having us. And a big thank you to you, Michael. Look at that. I called you Michael.
No, it's cool. I love it.
So that's the default. For generously giving your time today to share with all of the viewers on your knowledge and expertise.
Thank you, Michael.
Beautiful. Well, with that, we're going to wrap this episode of a special pop-up podcast of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast here with the Accounting and Finance Show Americas. Get to those other sessions. If you have chats or questions, put them in there. They will get answered at some point. And we thank you for your time. Take care. As always, Mike is a fun guy to speak with and filled with valuable information. A big thanks to him, and a big thanks to the Accounting and Finance Show America's virtual conference for having us. With that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.